Last night, when the author saw the comment section, he couldn't help but complained, and his tone was a little excited. Unexpectedly, I saw that many readers and friends gave rewards to the works today. In addition to being moved, the author felt a little uneasy. To be honest, yesterday's writer's words were just to complain and to express my inner grievances, not to sell miserable sympathy, or to ask readers and friends to give rewards to the works. This is really unnecessary. If you like this work, please give a recommendation ticket or a monthly ticket or something, and leave a comment to encourage it. This is already very good for the author. You really don't need to spend a lot of money on rewards. After all, no one's money comes from the wind. In addition, the work has been set to have a fan value of 100 points and can be commented. The author is still not sure how this fan value is calculated. It seems to be a monthly vote to get 100 fan value, or that sentence, set the fan value to comment. It's because I don't want to see some words that affect my mood. The author here welcomes everyone to actively participate in the positive discussion of the plot of the work in the comment area, or to put forward your valuable opinions and suggestions for this book. After all, this is the first work. The author knows that he still has a lot of room for improvement. If you point it out, I will listen carefully and accept your opinions. But if it is a type of person who has finished reading the pirated version, and then comes to the genuine book review area to brush their presence, or inexplicably makes subjective assumptions about the work, it is estimated that no matter which work they appear in the comment area, they will not be popular. All in all, thank you very much for your support and encouragement. Still want to mention that the author does not encourage readers and friends to give rewards. If you like a certain work, give it a subscription after the work is on the shelves, and support the genuine reading. In fact, it is already the biggest recognition for all the new authors who are conscientious and diligent in coding. At the same time, this is also the source of motivation for thousands of writers who have been working hard and can persist in their creation. Of course, if you really want to reward your works, that is your freedom, and the author will be very happy about it. After all, there is a small amount of money to take. Hide your mouth and laugh. Thank you again for your support and love. Thousands of words are not enough in return. We can only create better works for everyone. The sun was shining, and the trees on the street were mottled. But this was no ordinary afternoon. Uchiha Clan, Cemetery. As the Third Ninja World War entered its final stage, the village finally had a chance to take a breath. Taking advantage of this time, all the Konoha clans are holding funerals for the clansmen who died on the battlefield and mourn for their deceased companions. The people of the Uchiha clan who have just held a mass funeral are comforting each other. In the crowd, a young boy with a slightly thin figure, standing alone, with blank eyes, like a wooden stake. After a while, the young man took a deep breath and covered his head with a somewhat painful expression. It hurts. My brain hurts. Don't be too sad, Chongfeng. Death is the destination of every ninja. Although your parents and family members have all died in this war, you still have so many clansmen, and everyone will stand with you. On the shoulder, a big hand patted the boy lightly, and the other party said some comforting words. Obviously, he seems to have misunderstood something. The young man released his hand covering his cheek and looked up at the other party. Familiar faces. Although it looks much younger than in the original plot. But the person in front of him is the head of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Fugaku. My own uncle. The boy didn't say anything, just nodded. It seems really crossed. I was addicted to staying up late, and when I woke up, I came to Naruto World. And he became Uchiha Itaka's big cousin. At this moment, Uchiha Fengfeng's mood is extremely complicated. I don't know whether I should be happy or unfortunate. In the Naruto world, blood is the most respected. The Uchiha clan, as one of the direct descendants of the Six Paths Immortals, became their clan, and they were also relatives to the clan leader. Of course, this is much stronger than being an ordinary person. Just Chongfeng gently rubbed his temples. In his mind, a large number of memories are still emerging, and the feeling like a needle-like tingling makes him miserable. After a while, the memories finally merged. I knew, it wouldn't be a good time. After reading the memory in his mind, Uchiwa's eyes jumped. Now it is about 50 years of Konoha. The Third Ninja World War has basically ended, and ordinary people do not need to go to the battlefield to be cannon fodder. But nonetheless, as a Naruto fan in his previous life, Chongfeng was familiar with all the plots. He knew that such peaceful days would not last long. Not to mention the peaceful appearance of the entire ninja world, there are turbulent undercurrents, and small disputes and frictions between countries are still being staged from time to time. According to the development of the plot, the Uchiha clan of Konoha will also face a huge crisis of extermination. Not to mention the existence of his own talent. Even the Uchiha Hunin who opened the writing wheel, and even Uchiha Fugaku, who is the patriarch, will eventually be slaughtered by Uchiha Itachi, his cheap cousin in this life. How to do? Since you are familiar with the plot, can you only stand by and wait for the night of the genocide to come? Correct. What about Goldfinger? Don't you mean that this is the standard configuration of the Traversers? Uchiwa's thoughts turned and he thought quickly. He kept trying to wake up his golden finger, but found nothing. No gold finger? Then you let Lao Tzu go through a hammer. Chongfeng almost wanted to scold the gods. But he held back. She took a few deep breaths. The most urgent task now is to keep calm and think carefully about the next survival strategy. Angry and depressed will only waste your time. The first thought that popped into my mind was run away. Taking advantage of the fact that the genocide has not happened yet, hurry up and escape from Konoha, the farther away the better. No matter what kind of night he exterminates the clan, don't care about it all. Put yourself out of the plot. Relying on his familiarity with Hokage, if you live a low-key life in this world, it shouldn't be difficult to live a safe and secure life. Maybe with this handsome skin, you can enjoy the joy of everyone. So, how can we hide from everyone's eyes and ears and leave the village quietly? After leaving, where are you going? The most important point is, what do you rely on to live? Uchiwa Feng quietly cast his eyes out of the woods. The family land has been forced to move again and again, and the area where the Uchiha family lives has reached the edge of the village. As long as you avoid the main road guarded by the ninjas on duty, it is not difficult to leave Konoha. Others have not been thought of for the time being. Moreover, there is a more important issue that needs to be carefully considered by him. In Naruto world, human life is like a mustard. It is never wise for ordinary people to run around. It is also very dangerous to encounter a murderous betrayal, or a bandit who is blocking the road to rob. Just as he was thinking, a gentle voice sounded in his mind. It is detected that the host that matches the mentality, the God-level sign-in system, is being bound, 1%, 15%. Binding succeeded. Wave wind. System. He silently greeted him in his heart, and couldn't help but smile. I thought there was no system. Now it's finally here. Don't scold it first, let's figure out what the system does. Introduce yourself, system. Uchiwa coughed twice and gave the system an order in his mind. Answer to the host, this system is a God-level sign-in system. About 5 minutes later, Chongfeng finally fully understood the function of the system. Simply put, after this system is bound to itself, reading www.yuyugonshu.com allows you to check in once a day. No matter where you are, you have the opportunity to get rewards for signing in. Every 3 days, 7 days, 15 days, 21 days, and 30 days of check-in, the opportunity to check in at the designated location can be refreshed. 100% of the rewards will be rewarded when you check in at the designated location, and the quality of the rewards will be more generous than the general location. As for the specific reward, the system's answer is, anything is possible. If this can give a reincarnation eye of Juguyu, wouldn't it be cool? It's all thanks to this system for me to counterattack and reach the pinnacle of my life. Just when Uchiwa was thinking wildly and snickering to himself, the system suddenly asked. Host, your check-in times have not been used today, do you want to check in now? Do you sign in here? Uchiwa came back to his senses. He took a light breath, adjusting his still a little excited emotions. Glancing at the entire Uchiha cemetery. Here are buried many strong men of the Uchiha clan throughout the ages. Among them, there are many ninjas who used to be famous, such as Uchiha Mirror and so on. If you choose to sign in here, you might get a good reward. For example, a writing wheel eye, or even a kaleidoscope writing wheel eye. But because it is not a designated location to sign in, it's also possible that you won't get anything, just wasting a sign-in opportunity. Would it be better to go somewhere else? It's really confusing. After about 10 seconds, Chongfeng decided that it would be less strenuous. System, then sign in here. He gave the order. Sign in successfully. Congratulations on your reward, Srank Forbidden Technique Art of Reincarnation of Dirty Earth. The amount of chakra increased by 0.1%. The rewarded ninjutsu has been distributed to your system backpack. Please check and use it in time. When the system beep sounds, Uchiwa felt an imperceptible warm airflow in his body. This warm airflow disappears after traveling around in one's own meridians. Has the overall chakra volume increased by 0.1%? Although there is no feeling of becoming stronger for the time being, the accumulation of sand will become a tower. Let's take it step by step. Thinking about it, he opened the system backpack again. The art of reincarnation of dirty earth. By collecting the body tissues of deceased people, the soul of the target is summoned to the present world and becomes the appearance of his life, so that the target inherits the power of his life and makes it fight for you. Note, this technique has been strengthened and improved by the system, and the reincarnated person will be perfectly controlled by the host. Even if he knows the principle of the technique and the method of the seal, he will not be able to break free. And the host does not need to use a living person as a sacrifice when performing this ninjutsu. There is no need to seal, there are no additional conditions, and the summoning can be completed with one tap of both hands. The perfectly improved technique of reincarnation from the dirty earth. Although it is not the reward that I most want. But that's cool too. Chongfeng snickered secretly. Would you like to learn this rank forbidden technique reincarnation of dirty earth immediately? Learn. It was not a complicated flow of information. After Chongfeng issued the order, it entered his mind. Became part of his eternal memory. In an instant, he mastered this rank forbidden technique. At this time, he couldn't help but move his gaze to the cemetery, where the tombs of many powerful Uchiha clan were buried. 4 top powerhouses like Madara Uchiha, the first Hokage, the second Hokage, and even the 4th Hokage who have passed away, it is a little difficult for the current Uchiha to obtain their cellular tissues. But what about the deceased people in this cemetery? Do you want to find a chance to try this ninjutsu and see how effective it is? If you can make Uchiha Jing, who has already opened the 3 Goose Jade Riding Wheel Eye, the powerhouse of all dynasties, be his bodyguard. In this ninja continent, most places must be able to go by yourself, right? Let's go back, Chongfeng. Uchiha Fugaku's voice interrupted Chongfeng's thoughts. The mass funeral has been held, and the clansmen are leaving now. Only the ninjas who are responsible for guarding the cemetery are left to guard. Uchiwa took a look at the 5 solemn family guards. The strength of these 5 people is above the Chunin, and they are responsible for maintaining the peace of the cemetery. With them here, it seems that in the short term, if you want to try the art of reincarnation from the dirty earth, you can only find another opportunity. 3 days later. The moon is dark and the wind is high at night. In a forest not far from Konoha village. Uchiwa clapped his hands together. The art of reincarnation from dirty soil. Using the body tissue of the deceased, which he had obtained with great difficulty, he began to try to reincarnate in the dirt. If you can successfully perform this ninjutsu, summons the strong men of Uchiha to act as his bodyguard. He will have the capital to leave Konoha and survive independently in this ninja world. After ninjutsu is performed, in an instant, a terrifying attraction suddenly appeared on Uchiha Feng's body, draining all the chakras stored in his meridians. At only 10 years old, he doesn't have much chakra. But that terrifying suction force, like a bottomless pit, is still madly devouring the chakra of Chang Feng. Far from enough. The amount of chakra is insufficient, and ninjutsu cannot be activated at all. Pfft! Uchiha Feng lost his strength and sat down directly on the ground. As expected of an rank forbidden technique, if you want to activate it, it seems that you need to accumulate more chakras. Chang Feng shook his head helplessly. Thinking about it too, if Srank ninjutsu could be used casually, it wouldn't be classified as a forbidden technique, and it would be forbidden for people below the Jainin to practice without authorization. He patted the dirt on his body, stood up, turned around and walked back. I have logged in for 3 days in total, and I got a chance to sign in at a fixed location. The target check-in location is the ninja school. What kind of special rewards can I get? I really look forward to it. Uchiha was walking down the street with a desolate expression. The dim streetlights stretched his slightly lonely and thin figure very long. In front is the ninja school. In other words, the war is already over, and other families have long been rewarded and affirmed by high-level officials. The Hyuga, Akimichi, Nara, and other families' prestige in the village is increasing day by day. But we Uchiha are the only ones who haven't moved at all. Isn't this too abnormal? Humph! Don't you understand the thoughts of the high-level executives by now? SHH, someone is coming. 2 patrolling members of the Uchiha security force came towards him. With sharp eyes, he glanced back and forth on Chang Feng's body, and only relaxed a little after seeing that it was his own clan. It's Chang Feng. Taihuo Uchiha on the left was the first to say hello. It's so late, are you still wandering outside? Uchiha Yatsushiro followed suit. Big brother Taihuo, big brother 8 generations. Chang Feng raised his eyes to look at the 2 of them and nodded absently in response. The 2 looked at each other. I heard that you are going to take the graduation exam tomorrow. As a member of the Uchiha clan, you must be able to pass the exam and graduate successfully, right? After the exam, don't forget to go to the shrine for a meeting. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Chang Feng. The 2 walked past Chang Feng and said separately. Understood. Chang Feng still looked lonely, with an absent-minded look. Uchiha Taihuo and Uchiha Yatsushiro didn't say much, just watched Chang Feng go away. In their eyes, this is just a war orphan who lost his parents and relatives, wandering the streets in the middle of the night, in this way to cherish the deceased relatives and relieve his inner sadness. Similar to the rest of the village. Everyone has been surprised. After Chang Feng walked away, he looked back and found that the other party really didn't pay special attention to him, so he couldn't help but smile. This is what he wants. Before your strength has grown up, try to keep a low profile. Try not to attract anyone's attention. Soon, he came to the gate of the school. I don't know if it's okay to sign in outside the door. The school at night was closed, empty inside and out, and silent. Chang Feng tried to sign in, but nothing happened. Sure enough, you still have to go to school to sign in. He was very familiar with it, and flexibly jumped on the fence and climbed in. Go straight to the direction of the teaching building. Sign in successfully. Congratulations on completing the check-in at the designated location. You will get special rewards, immortal body, the art of fireball, and the chakra volume has increased by 1.5%. A fairy body. Uchiha was overjoyed. But what followed was doubt. As a fan of the original Naruto, it seems that it is rare to see the name immortal human body in the original. He thought, and immediately summoned his attribute panel. Fairy body. With the power of immortals, you can activate your physical body, so that you have unlimited growth potential, such as, the amount of chakra that surpasses the tailed beast, the power of creation and regeneration without the need for seals, super physical fitness, and when using ninjutsu, the power can be obtained greatly. Strengthen. Even the lowest level of ninjutsu can exert destructive power. After reading the instructions, Chong Feng finally understood. Comparable to the amount of chakra of the tailed beast, Muji regeneration, super strong physique and ninjutsu power. These various abilities are all a replica of Kyunshaozuma. Originally, the so-called fairy body refers to this. But there seems to be something wrong. Just now, I didn't have any other feeling except that my meridians felt a little warm. Neither did I feel that the amount of chakra increased, nor did I find that my physical fitness became stronger. Chong Feng took out his kunao and aimed it at his arm. He intends to try it out to see if he really has the ability to regenerate Muji, which can heal the injury quickly. If that's the case, then it's amazing. Just when Kunao was about to cut the skin of his arm, he suddenly stopped moving. There is a better way to solve the puzzle, why hurt yourself? System, can you make your voice sound a little better? Okay, are you satisfied with this sound? Following Chong Feng's command, the system's voice immediately became sweeter and gentler than before. Good. Now answer me, why don't I feel like I'm getting stronger? Chong Feng nodded and asked again. Answering the host, the immortal body only allows you to gain the potential for unlimited growth, not to directly increase your strength, so it's normal that you don't have much special feeling. If you want to unleash this potential and make it your own, you need to practice properly. It doesn't need to be too hard and harsh, just follow the training method of the ninja school and practice normally. Okay, sure enough. Chong Feng looked up at the sky. It's getting late at night, and there will be graduation exams tomorrow, so let's go back first. Thinking of him walking towards the school gate. According to the method, when you came, lightly jumped. When he jumped so casually, he could clearly feel that his body was floating, much lighter than before. He flew directly up the wall and looked back. Is the effect of the immortal human body starting to show up so soon? After speaking, he jumped off the fence and disappeared. The next day. Ninja School. Ukiwave Wind, not only the theory class, but also the three-body technique with full marks. It's amazing. As expected of a genius from a famous family. According to this situation, Chong Feng will be able to graduate smoothly today. I'm so envious. Alas! I don't know if I can graduate. In classrooms. With Chunin teacher announcing the exam results, there was a lot of discussion. Facing that pair, either with the light of nympho, or with envy, jealousy, and hatred in the eyes. Chong Feng, who was sitting on the far right seat against the wall, was helpless. Although I have tried my best to restrain myself, I want to keep a low profile. But there is really no way. The theory classes at the ninja school, as well as the three-body technique, are really too simple. Even though he deliberately behaved poorly, he still got full marks by accident. It's not that Chong Feng doesn't want to keep a low profile, but his strength really doesn't allow it. I hope those guys don't pay too much attention to me, now is not the time to expose. Chong Feng muttered silently in his heart. Those guys naturally refers to the members of the root organization and the Anbu directly under Hokage. The Uchiha family has always been suspicious of Konoha executives. After the Nine Tails incident broke out, in the past few years, Uchiha was not trusted by high-level officials and was heavily monitored. In the clan, all the younger generation with outstanding performance will immediately become the root organization, or the recruitment and training object directly under the Anbu. The purpose of the high-level actions is to differentiate Uchiha from the inside. Geniuses such as Uchiha Shisui and Uchiha Itachi have been brainwashed by the so-called Wall of Fire since childhood. Of these two, the former has joined the root organization. The latter is also too revealing because he does not know how to restrain himself. Since graduating from the ninja school, he has been targeted by all parties. Recently, he has been frequently summoned by the three generations of Hokage Sarutobi Hizen. Uchiha Itachi's joining Anbu is already a certainty. If nothing else, in a few years, he will stage a genocide tragedy like the original, killing his uncles and brothers, and even his biological parents. At this moment, Hokage office. Sarutobi Hizen, who had just finished his office, took out his pipe, lit it, and took a breath. Then, his deep eyes glanced at the crystal ball in front of him. The ninja school graduation exam has always been one of the opportunities for high-level officials to observe and screen good seedlings. Therefore, Sarutobi Hizen used the telescope technique early on to observe the specific performance of each student. Izuki wave wind. He exhaled a smoke ring, slowly opened the drawer, and took out a thick stack of documents. On the cover of the document, the family emblem of the Uchiha clan was imprinted impressively. And what is recorded in it is of course the current Uchiha clan, including those ordinary clansmen who are not ninjas, the detailed information of everyone. Shhhhh. Sarutobi Hizen opened the information and turned to the page where the information of Uchiro Kaze was located. UU reading www.uyugonshu.com. Although the three-body technique and theory classes were passed with full marks. But considering that he successfully graduated from the ninja school at the age of 10, it is 5 years later than the record set by Kakashi. Compared to Uchiha Itachi and Shisui, it's even more different. It's not a genius. But it is indeed stronger than ordinary people. Because of the blood of the Uchiha clan. Hunin should be his growth limit. While talking to himself, Hizen Sarutobi closed the document and looked at the crystal ball again. There was a hint of disappointment in his eyes. What he was looking for was true genius. Geniuses like Orochimaru, Minato Namikaze, Kakashi Hatake, Shisui Uchiha, Itachi Uchiha. Instead of a growth limit, it can only reach the level of ordinary Jonin at most. It's just. If that child is just a child of an ordinary family, that's all. But he is a member of Uchiha's clan, and Sharingan is a very difficult boundary of blood. Then, the screening procedure needs to be more cautious. He needs to be tested further in order to obtain more accurate information and to judge the degree of threat to the village in the future. Thinking about it, a gleam of light flashed across Hizen Sarutobi's deep eyes. Whoosh! He took another sharp breath. Stop the water! A figure flashed in front of him, and Uchiha Shisui appeared. 3 generations of adults, what are your orders? What do you think about Uchiro Kaze? Sarutobi Hizen raised his head, his deep eyes gleamed with wisdom and majesty. Changfeng. I don't know him too well, I just met him a few times in the clan. Although he is Itachi's eldest cousin and the nephew of Lord Fuyu, he doesn't have much sense of existence in the family. Shisui answered honestly. Oh? What is his talent? Do you usually have any particularly eye-catching performances? As far as I know, Chang Feng's talent is not very good. In the entire Uchiha clan, it can only be regarded as a medium level. 3 generations of adults, do you need me to test him? Through Sarutobi Hizen's words, Shisui quickly judged the other person's mind, so he took the initiative to ask. Sarutobi Hizen didn't respond to Shisui, and his thoughts were still on Changfeng's body. Is it because the talent is not outstanding enough to not get the attention of the family, resulting in a low sense of existence? Among the talented Uchiha clan, this is indeed a very common thing. There are many ordinary people like Uchiwa Kaze. I've gotten used to it over the years. After pondering for 10 seconds, Sarutobi Hizen waved his hand. Don't waste too much time on him, just try it out. After he finished speaking, he stood up and walked to the window. With a pipe in his mouth, he stared out the window with his hands behind him. Standing on the Hokage building, the entire Konoha village has a panoramic view. Zishui, come and see. After a long time, Sarutobi Hizen turned around and waved at Shisui. Tell me what you saw. He watched Ji Shui come to his side, took the pipe out of his mouth, and held it in his hand. Bright and sharp eyes, back to the window. Following the other party's gaze, Zishui looked outside, thought for a moment, and then said, in the afternoon, our family will hold a meeting at Nanga Shrine. Master Fuyu said that it is to summarize the gains and losses of this war and strengthen the cohesion of the remaining clansmen, because our Uchiha clan has suffered a lot in this war. But I think it's probably not that simple. 3 generations of adults, I will focus on monitoring the movement of the family. The victory of this war is based on countless victims, and our village has paid a very heavy price. Now the war is finally over, and the village has just begun to restore short-term peace. Even if it is a family, if it intends to do something wrong, trying to destroy this rare peace, I will never allow it. Please rest assured, I will never be kidnapped by narrow-minded nationalism. Shishui stared out the window. Under the glow of the rising sun, the Konoha village was enveloped in a calm and peaceful atmosphere. As the strongest genius in Uchiha history except Madara Uchiha. No need for Sarutobi Hizen to explain more, Shisui can also understand what the other party wants to say. At this time, in his mind, he couldn't help but again, the tragic picture of fighting with the enemy on the battlefield back then appeared. Those unbearable scenes seemed like yesterday. Uchiha did sacrifice a lot for the village in this war. Sarutobi Hizen's tone had a hint of intrigue, and after speaking, he fell silent. Shishui knew he had something to say, so he didn't respond. After a long time, Sarutobi Hizen finally spoke again. You are now the strongest of the Uchiha clan, and the reputation of stopping the water has spread throughout the ninja world. Don't you feel guilty for treating your own clan like this? After all, Sarutobi Hizen was an old man, and while testing Shisui with words, he kept his eyes on him. Stopping the water in an instant is just a title of offer me by the enemy. Such a title does not bring much glory to me, because it is the lives of countless people who have achieved it. Compared to narrow nationalism, for me, maintaining the peace of the village is the most important thing. 3 generations of adults. In order to protect the village and the people of Konoha, I am willing to give everything. Ji Shui's words were very serious, his eyes and tone were extremely firm. The Uchiha family, it would be great if there were more reasonable people like you. Sarutobi Hizen observed his words and expressions, and had already made some judgments on what Shisui said. Satisfied in his heart, he turned around slowly, looked out the window again, and patted Zishui on the back lightly. Like an amiable elder. After speaking, he put the pipe into his mouth again. Ninja School. For the students who are about to graduate, the written test of theoretical knowledge and the assessment of the 3-body technique are basically over. The third stage is the actual combat assessment. All the students who passed the test in the previous exam gathered on the training ground. The next one is going to fight against Kazeuki and Yuichi Hinata. Please stand up for the 2 who read their names. Chunin-sensei's eyes were withdrawn from the list in his hand, and he raised his head to look at Chongfeng and his next opponent. A student from another famous family of Konoha, the Hinata clan, Yuichi Hinata. Please advise. Chongfeng stood up from the crowd and smiled politely at Yuichi Hyaga who was facing him. The other party snorted lightly, with disdain on his face. Then, he took a stance. I won't show mercy because of your politeness. Make a move. Hyaga Yuichi put on a standard Hinata ninja jutsu starting style. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com looks like it. But in fact, this guy is only half a bucket of water. There is basically no talent in this class. The really outstanding ones graduated early a few years ago and entered the battlefield early. For example, Uchiha Itaki, who is 2 years younger than Chang Feng, is about to be promoted to Janin and is about to join Anbu. If you say that, then I won't be polite. Chang Feng responded with a sneer. To deal with a guy of this level, with his current strength, it is more than enough. He originally wanted to use a flamboyant fireball to simply and rudely solve the opponent. But he still resisted such a mindless impulse. During this special period, countless pairs of eyes are staring at the movements of the Uchiha clan. The wood is beautiful in the forest, and the wind will destroy it. Especially as a member of Uchiha's clan, even if they show a little bit of brilliance, they will definitely become the target of Anbu's special attention. Even aside from Anbu and the root organization, there are other threats hidden in the current Konoha. Orochimaru, one of the 3 ninjas, has not defected at this time, and is hiding in secret to conduct various secret experiments. A Uchiha kid with good talent, of course, can easily become the target of Orochimaru's kidnapping. So before you have fully grown up, if you want to survive, you have to keep a low profile and keep a low profile. Chang Feng knew this. He took a deep breath and thought back to the original book, when the 12 Xiaoqiang just graduated, that kind of rookie pecking at each other. Then he decisively took out his kunao, made a pretentious cry, and charged towards Hyuga Yuichi aggressively. As expected. The latter also took out kunao, intending to have a closeto blade battle with him. Ding 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 dong. There was a bitter voice. The power of the immortal human body begins to show up when you really do it with people. It doesn't seem like what the system said at all, it takes some practice to make it stimulate its power. Chang Feng only felt that at this moment, his physical strength and endurance were like an abyss, like a sea, as if endless. And the physical strength is also amazing. With both feet casually stepping on the ground, his body almost instantly turned into a gust of wind, moving forward. He had to try his best to control the power of his shot, so as not to accidentally crush the ground or even kill the guy in front of him. Under the circumstance that Chang Feng deliberately concealed it, even though there were many teachers around the training ground, no one found any flaws. In the eyes of those Chunin teachers, the battle between him and Yuichi Hyuga was almost nothing special. Whether it is the speed of the shot, the strength, or the angle of attack, they are all quite satisfactory. He even said that some actions made people feel very clumsy. He couldn't even reach the level of genin. Although it can't be said that they are very good, the strength of these 2 people should be considered very good compared to other students. Outside the venue, the 2 Chunin teachers who were in charge of cross-checking the test scores couldn't help but sighed. The other students were already fascinated and dazzled. For most people, at this moment, Chang Feng and Yuichi Hyuga are the representatives of strong and genius. Chang Feng is so powerful. Come on, Yuichi-kin. Lord Chang Feng. Defeat him. The girls cheered and cheered for the man they liked, which led to a lively atmosphere on the training ground. As for the boys, some people are envious of Chang Feng and Yuichi on the field, some people are jealous, or both. The blade battle between the 2 soon turned into a physical confrontation. When the Hinata clansmen fight against each other, they basically don't use ninjutsu. The ancestral soft boxing method, combined with the almost blind eye, is their trump card. Fortunately, Yuichi Hyuga hasn't awakened yet, which makes their clan proud of the bloodline boundary. Otherwise, to deal with him, Chang Feng would probably have to use half of his true skills. At this moment, he pretended to be out of breath and tried his best to cooperate with the other party's performance, but in fact he was able to do it with ease. Of course, you can't overdo it. He intends to play for a while and then completely end the opponent. Soft boxing. Hyuga Yuichi condensed chakra on his palms, and slapped Chang Feng with one palm. Chang Feng pretended not to know anything, and also condensed chakra into his fist, intending to fight the opponent recklessly. Exactly, you can also take this opportunity to verify the extent of your current immortal human body, and whether it can make the injury recover instantly. Oops! When Chunin-sensei saw this scene, his expression changed instantly. The ninjutsu of the Hinata clan is very powerful. Through the highly concentrated chakra, it is released with the unique soft boxing technique to attack the opponent's meridian system, thereby causing serious damage. This is Konoha's strongest physical technique, even if it is only slightly rubbed, because the burst of chakra will hurt the internal organs, so it is easy to cause fatal injuries. Chong Feng is now using his fist to forcefully pick up the opponent's bagwazang. This is really nonsense. The two people in the battle have already started to come into contact. Even if he sees a dangerous situation, it's too late for Chunin-sensei to stop him. Everyone could only hold their breath and concentrate on observing the outcome of the battle between the two. Some girls have begun to cover their eyes. It seemed that he couldn't bear to see Chong Feng's arm being slapped off by the opponent's palm. It's really stupid, you dare to use your fist to touch my bagwazang. Hyaga Yuichi sneered, his momentum unabated. The oppressive and highly cohesive chakra brought great pressure to Chong Feng before the two people's limbs really touched. At a critical juncture, Chong Feng staggered his fists a little to avoid being hit directly by the opponent. Fist palms meet. Bang sound. Chong Feng only felt that there was a huge force rushing out from the opponent's palm. Like lightning fast, it poured into the meridians of his arm through his fist, and he felt extremely tingling in an instant. At the same time, the huge anti-shock force shook him back and forth, almost falling. But the impact of his punch also knocked Hyaga Yuichi out. SHH. The two of them retreated more than 20 meters each, facing each other at a distance. The tingling pain on Chong Feng's arm was quickly enveloped by a gentle chakra, which nourished and repaired the damaged muscle cells like a spring breeze. Soon, the injury caused by the other party returned to normal. The immortal human body is indeed powerful. Chong Feng couldn't help but praise in his heart. This is your family's stunt, bagwazang. It's just that. In order to prevent others from seeing that he was unscathed, Chong Feng deliberately lowered his arms and pretended to be trembling slightly. Then he reluctantly raised his hand, tried to clench his fist, the corners of his mouth raised, sneering and mocking. In the eyes of the people around him, this move naturally became a strong support for his injury. On the opposite side, Yuichi Hyaga changed his face slightly when he heard this, and at the same time he was secretly shocked and puzzled. This is impossible. Just now, I clearly had the highly condensed chakra, Kanshu www.yuyuganshu.com penetrated into the boy's arm through bagwa palm, and cut off his hand meridians, destroying his muscles. Even if the bones of his arm were not broken, and the meridians, muscles, and ligaments were cut by chakra, at least he would not be able to raise his arm anymore. A dead duck has a tough mouth, are you holding on? Humph, I'll show you the power of bagwazang next. Yuichi Hyaga made a quick judgment and thought that the opponent was holding out. Although he was surprised by Chong Feng's tenacity in his heart, he didn't intend to let him go. Instead, he grinned and put on a stance, intending to rush up to attack again. At this moment, the two figures flashed in front of their eyes. Enough. That's it for today, I announce that you both have successfully graduated. Chunin-sensei stopped Yuichi Hinata and turned to look at Chong Feng at the same time. He has already seen that, if he continues to let these two fight, it will only result in a loss for both parties, and there is no other doubt. Because chakra is not strong enough, is the power of bagwazang much weaker than normal. Nevertheless, I'll go to Konoha Hospital to check on my arm later, Chong Feng. And you, Yuichi, when dealing with your comrades, you should focus on the competition, and it will stop when you hit it. You can't do it anywhere. You should pay attention to it in the future. It is absolutely not allowed to harm a partner. Then, this is the forward guard for your ninja, congratulations. Another Chunin teacher in charge of invigilating and grading exams also stood up at this time. He handed the prepared ninja forward guards into the hands of the two of them, and then announced the next group of students to take the test. The final stage of the graduation assessment is finally over. However, Chong Feng wasn't as happy as the others when he got the forehead. Bearing the surname of Uchiha, in this turbulent Konoha ninja village, he knew very well that his own special challenge had just begun. Walking out of the gate of the ninja school, he inadvertently raised his head and glanced somewhere in the sky. The old man of the 3 generations of Hokage, most of the time he is using the telescope technique to observe today's graduation exam, right? But then again, the telescope technique actually has some magical uses. I remember in the original book, the old and unscrupulous Sarutobi Hizen used this ninjutsu to study some special hobbies. Chong Feng couldn't help twitching the corners of his mouth. Humph! With a knowing smile, he left quickly and walked towards the direction of Uchiha's ancestral hall, Nanga Shrine. Nanga Shrine. The location of the Uchiha rally. After receiving the notice of the meeting, people from the clan began to come here one after another. When Chong Feng arrived, most of the clansmen were already waiting here. System. Sign in here. He ordered. Today's sign-in times have not been used yet. I deliberately waited until now, in order to sign in at Nanga Shrine. At this time, Chong Feng had some expectations in his heart, and he didn't know what rewards he could give for signing in here. Sign in successfully. Congratulations on getting kaleidoscope writing wheel eyes, the chakra volume has increased by 0.1%. With the sound of the system prompt, Chong Feng only felt a warm feeling in his eyes. He hurriedly closed his eyes tightly, lest other clansmen find his kaleidoscope. But he couldn't help but secretly rejoice. Knew it. Signing in at a special location, even if it's not a designated location, the chances of getting advanced rewards seem to be greatly increased. It's cool. Inwardly, he was dark and refreshing, waiting for the warm feeling on his eyes to dissipate, and Chong Feng took back the chakra injected into his eyes. The kaleidoscope writing wheel disappeared, and returned to ordinary dark pupils. Chong Feng, what are you doing here? Don't hurry in, Lord Fuyu is already waiting for us. A familiar voice came from behind him. Chong Feng looked back and found that it was Uchiha Shisui. The current Uchiha clan, the youngest genius, is also the current Uchiha #1 master. In my impression, I don't seem to be familiar with this guy. Although he was a little puzzled, when the other party greeted him, Chong Feng nodded politely in response. Then the two walked side by side to the inside of the shrine. I heard that you successfully graduated from ninja school today, congratulations. Shishui said as he walked. Thanks. Chong Feng shrugged casually. This move immediately made Shishui look surprised. How? He asked curiously. You don't seem very happy. It's really not something to be happy about. Chong Feng answered casually. Inwardly, he was secretly complaining, joking, how could being a ninja be a happy thing? Fortunately, the war is over now. If this is during the Third Ninja World War, would you be sent to the battlefield as cannon fodder? Of course, Chong Feng still noticed Ji Shui's puzzled expression. I actually don't want to be a ninja at all. He explained further. Is it? Hearing this, Zishui showed a thoughtful expression. At this time, the two entered the underground passage one after another along with the other clansmen. Under the crowded crowd, both of them fell silent. Although I said that, since I have become a ninja, I have to accept such a fate and follow through with my own ninja. Shishui suddenly spoke again. Chong Feng thought to himself, is this going to instill the will of fire in me? He, who is familiar with the original work, has been on guard against this guy since the first sight of Shishui. Ah, that's all it can do. Lack of interest, he responded lazily. If you need any help from me, feel free to speak up, especially with regard to practice. Shishui said immediately. Let's talk about these things later. I don't know yet, which Hunin guide will be assigned tomorrow. Chong Feng's words immediately attracted the interest of another clansman nearby. If you don't plan to accept the Jainin guidance arranged by the school, you can come directly to the garrison." Hearing this, Chang Feng and Ji Shui both looked at the man at the same time. The man was in his early 30s, a gentle-faced, bearded uncle. Chang Feng had no impression of him. Thinking back hard, this person seems to be Mia Uchiha. Seeing Chang Feng's gaze, Uchiha Shania smiled again. "This is the privilege of our Uchiha clan. All the guards are recruited from the clan. Our garrison also needs fresh blood to be replenished, so even after graduating from the ninja school, we have priority to deal with the graduates of the Uchiha clan." "Thank you, I will seriously consider it." Chang Feng nodded. The Uchiha garrison is a good choice. Joining the garrison under the control of your own family will make it much easier to sign in the future. While speaking, everyone has completely entered the underground passage. Follow the passage until you reach the vast underground conference hall. Bright torch light, UU reading www.uuganshu. The comm was shining all around, and at this time, there were at least 300 or 400 Uchiha people gathered in the entire hall. Including those ordinary people who are not ninjas, all were called over. Chang Feng looked around, including the 8-year-old Itaki Uchiha, who had already come, but he did not see the Patriarch Uchiha Fuyak. "The Patriarch called us here, it should be a reward for meritorious deeds, right? Our Uchiha clan's performance in the Third Ninja War is more eye-catching than any other clan." While waiting, some people couldn't hold back and began to whisper. "Haha! When it comes to this, I have the most say. After all, I'm the one who came back from the Kirayan battlefield. Those guys in Wuyan village, when they saw our Uchiha clan, they were like an embarrassed. Shishui, do you still remember? That guy named Ao, with envy of Kirikan, tried to chase us, but after seeing you, they immediately turned around and ran away. Don't mention how relieved I was at that time, ha ha ha." Uchiha Yatsushiro said with a blushing expression, and looked at Shishui next to Chang Feng. The latter just nodded and smiled politely, but did not speak. In Chang Feng's heart, he couldn't help but feel a bitter smile and helplessness. Let the Uchiha clansmen who are good at fire escape go to the eastern battlefield to deal with the misty ninja who are good at water escape. The high-level wishful thinking was really loud. Looking at the open-eyed smiling face in front of him, Chang Feng only felt sad. These people are so happy to be treated as cannon fodder. Shishui looks very different from them, but I don't know, how does he feel about this war? Chang Feng is watching Shishui, trying to understand something from the other person's body language. But unfortunately, Shishui was expressionless. To be known as a genius, even the Patriarch Uchiha Fugaku recognized that he was the #1 Uchiha master today. What Ji Shui relies on is not only his extraordinary talent for cultivation, but his heart is naturally deeper than that of ordinary people. Chang Feng's eyes wandered around in the crowd. Of the hundreds of Uchiha clansmen, he may not recognize all of them. After a few glances, he soon discovered that there were about 30 or 40 clansmen on the right near the front row, which were very different from other clansmen. When everyone was discussing, this small group of clansmen were very silent. The expressions on everyone's faces were very serious, and there seemed to be no ground on their bodies, releasing an invisible chilling aura. The Uchiha clan, the most elite clan today. All of them are from the Konoha garrison. Judging from their performance at the moment, Chang Feng has realized in his heart that this meeting is by no means easy. I'm afraid, Uchiha's betrayal will enter an explosive period from today. He couldn't help but look back, and then pretended to glance at Shishui casually. At this moment, the surrounding discussions suddenly subsided a lot, and soon the entire hall became quiet. Following everyone's gaze, Chang Feng looked to the left, just in time to see Uchiha Fugaku, leading Uchiha Mikoto to walk quickly. His face was very low, which made most of the clansmen who had little happiness in their hearts immediately shrouded in doubts. Most of the people put away their smiles, and everyone's eyes stayed on Uchiha Fugaku's face. Lord Fuyu, I heard that the reward in the village has been executed, but it seems that they have forgotten Uchiha's credit. After seeing Fuyu appear, an elite clansman who was about 40 years old in the front row finally couldn't help but speak in a deep voice. This person is the captain of the garrison, Takehiko Uchiha. His words were like a big stone, smashing into the hearts of everyone, and many people immediately thought of something. In fact, the situation of the Uchiha family in Konoha village in recent years is really worrying. The top management has always been suspicious and guarded against them. And 3 years ago, after the outbreak of the Nine Tails Rebellion incident, the high-level people in the village, and even others, pushed Uchiha out to the point of being bright. These things, many Uchiha people are very clear in their hearts. Because they are reflected in every aspect of life. For example, when the Uchiha people walk on the road, they will be scorned and criticized by passers-by from time to time. Because of this, after hearing Uchiha Takehiko's words, there was a buzz in the crowd. Uchiha Fuyu took a deep look at Uchiha Takehiko, and then said in a deep voice, "I will find another time to discuss this matter with the senior management. I'm calling everyone here today mainly to make a summary of this war." It could be heard that Fuyu saw that the people of the tribe were angry, and planned to change the topic first and calm things down. But the clansmen didn't seem to buy it. His words, on the contrary, made other clansmen feel resentful in their chests. The discussion grew louder, and even many clansmen began to raise their own doubts, complaints, and dissatisfaction with Fuyu. "We really need to sum up the gains and losses. Lord Fuyu, in this war, we Uchiha sacrificed hundreds of people, and the major shinobi villages agreed to a truce. It's been so long now. Lien Union village and us have already begun to sign a settlement agreement, but the village has not given us the recognition Uchiha deserves. This is outrageous." "That's right. Do high-level officials treat the meritorious family like this? It's abhorrent. All the other families have received the recognition they deserve, so why did the Uchiha family get nothing? Instead, we have to suffer the eyes of the villagers. This situation has been discovered for a long time. Since the outbreak of the Nine-Tail incident, there have been more and more criticisms of Uchiha in the village. Lord Fuyu, we must not tolerate this any longer. Konoha has gradually become unfriendly to us. Over the years, Uchiha's clan has been forced to relocate from the core of the village to the edge of the village. If we continue to make concessions, I'm afraid this Konoha village will have no place for us in the future." There were 300 or 400 people, and the crowd was furious. Every word you said made the entire underground conference hall noisy. Facing the attitudes of so many clansmen, Uchiha Fugaku, the clan leader, also became speechless. At this time, he knew that he should be more cautious in his words and deeds. Because any word is likely to ignite a greater anger in the hearts of the clansmen, causing the situation to be even more out of his control. Long Style outside pays attention to the reactions of two people, one of which is naturally Shishui. The other is Uchiha Itachi. The latter is still acting normally, and at this moment, like the other clansmen, his face is a little unhappy. However, Shishui still didn't have much response. From beginning to end, silently. "Stopping the water. Why don't you speak? This war, if it weren't for you to turn the tide, we Uchiha would probably sacrifice even more." Uchiha Yatsushiro noticed the situation here. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com squeezed over in the crowd, and tried to instigate Shishui. "Yes Shishui, you are not only the hero of Konoha now, but as the #1 master of Uchiha, you are also highly trusted by the top management. If you help mediate, maybe the top management will change their attitude towards us." Uchiha Taihuo also came over and said. After speaking, he looked at Chongfeng with a puzzled face beside him, and gave a brief explanation. It turns out that at the beginning of the war, the Uchiha clan, who were good at fire escape, suffered frequent losses when faced with their opponents, who were good at water escape. Most of the sacrificed tribesmen died when the battle first broke out. Later, Uchiha Shisui was born, and with the power of one person, he crushed all the opponents, and with his superb teleportation technique, he made all the enemies terrified. Not only won the title of Instant Body Stop Water, but also won the high-level respect. In the middle of the war, the high-level officials ordered Zishui to replace Fuyu, command the front-line battle, and mobilize Fuyu to the western battlefield to support Kikyo Castle. After the war, Shisui became famous and spread almost throughout the ninja world. Whether it is the oneself of Konoha village or the ninjas of other countries, they all know that the one who led the Uchiha clan to defeat the enemies of Kirigakura was a boy named Shisui Uchiha. Since then, he has established his status as the #1 master of Uchiha. Zishui, if you, together with Lord Fuyu, give your opinion to the senior management, they will definitely listen. After Uchiha Taihuo explained to Chongfeng, he immediately said to Shisui. It seems that he hasn't seen through the high-level intentions until now. Chongfeng, who was listening, was already sneering in his heart. At the most tense moment of the front-line battle, changing the coach on the spot is a taboo in the military. Let the young Shisui command the battle on behalf of Fuyu, but transfer Fuyu, who is the patriarch, to another place. Isn't it just to prevent Uchiha Fuyu, the patriarch, from making contributions? Now everyone knows that there is a Uchiha genius named Shunshai Zishui. His fame, limelight, and even strength overwhelmed Uchiha Fuyak, the patriarch. I have to say that this trick of alienation by the senior executives of Konoha is really a bit vicious. Fortunately, Fuyu has a broad mind and is more sensible than other Uchihas. If this is replaced by a person with a narrow mind and an extreme obsession with power, seeing someone from a clan is more famous than his own clan leader, wouldn't it lead to suspicion or even infighting? Although I have already seen through everything in my heart. However, Chongfeng didn't express his opinion, instead he looked at Zishui. Shishui smiled at Uchiha Taihuo and Yatsushiro, reached out and patted the two of them on the shoulders. Then he calmly stepped forward and walked towards Fuyu. As he lined up the crowd, many of the clan immediately quieted down and looked at him curiously, not understanding what he planned to do. After coming to Fuyu, Zishui first whispered a few words to him. I saw the former nodded, and his face softened a lot. After getting permission from Fuyu, Zishui turned around and faced the other clansmen. Everyone, please be patient. I have already discussed with Lord Fuyu, and I will personally go to Hokage's office with him later to present our appeal to Lord Three Generations. The Third Ninja World War is over. Everyone has made great sacrifices. Some of you, even in this war, are separated from your parents and relatives forever. This is a huge misfortune. In this regard, Fuyu-sama and I can understand everyone's feelings, but please don't worry. Now the village and our major families need to rest and recuperate, so please rest in peace. Please give me and Lord Fuyu some time to hand over these matters to us. We promise you that we will give you a satisfactory answer. Shishui said something very gentle and polite. Perhaps it is the blessing of the halo of the #1 master of Uchiha, coupled with the proper words. The words he said made most of the clan feel at ease. Sure enough, the clansmen quickly calmed down. Fuyu on the side heaved a sigh of relief, and finally found an opportunity to speak. After he took a few deep breaths and adjusted his mood, he began to summarize. Chongfeng, who was standing behind the crowd, felt a deep disappointment for no reason at this moment, and felt that the Uchiha family was completely helpless. He was disappointed that Fuyu was the same as in the original book, his character was too lenient, and even made people feel a little timid. Yes, it is cowardice. When I watched the drama before, because of the limited space, my understanding of Fuyu was also limited. Now facing this Uchiha patriarch in person, Chongfeng really realized what kind of person he was. Such a person, in the peaceful era, if he is not involved in the conflict of interests with Konoha, it is indeed very suitable for him to lead Uchiha as the patriarch. But in the current situation of domestic and foreign difficulties, Fuyu's mild, even a little indecisive character, such a downplayed way of handling it is really unacceptable. No wonder he was killed by his own son. Another thing that disappointed Changfeng was Shishui. In the face of the high-level pressure on the Uchiha clan, they were squeezed and suppressed everywhere. Shishui, who is the #1 master of Uchiha, has always shown a high-level attitude. It is 100% certain that Shishui has indeed been seriously brainwashed. In fact, he could have a better solution to the problem. Now he chooses to help the village instead of standing on the side of his family. Although Ji Shui's remarks just now successfully stabilized people's hearts, Changfeng doesn't think that the higher-ups will listen to his and Fuyu's proposal. Even, whether Zishui will really go to Hokage's office together with Fuyu, as he said, and personally make a consultation request to Sandai and others, it is unknown. If Shishui can really make demands on behalf of Uchiha in front of the top management, and these reasonable demands are accepted smoothly by the senior management of Konoha, it will not lead to more and more conflicts later. In fact, Shisui itself has a certain responsibility for the tragic genocide incident in Uchiha. Based on various observations, Changfeng almost doesn't need to speculate, and can predict that once Uchiha really breaks out with Konoha, I am afraid Shisui and Itachi will turn against each other. This is really speechless. Continue to develop according to this situation, the night of the genocide is inevitable. Thinking about it, Changfeng's eyes subconsciously turned to Uchiha Itachi. The dissatisfaction on the latter's face has disappeared. At this moment, Itachi was expressionless, listening to his father's speech on the conclusion of the war. Whether it is Itachi or Shisui, it is very difficult or even impossible to change their minds. Especially Ji Shui, his pupil technique is the other known as the strongest illusion technique. Now if you want to avoid the crisis of extermination, what Changfeng can do, Yu reading www.yuuganchu.com only works hard to become stronger. Before the genocide event happens, let yourself have the power to change everything as soon as possible. About an hour later, the summary meeting was finally over. Changfeng didn't listen much, and was chatting with Uchiha Taihuo, Rice Fire, and others the whole time. From the mouths of the two, I learned more about the origin of the conflict between the Uchiha clan and Konoha. The disappointment in my heart is getting deeper and deeper. Fuyu led Shisui and Uchiha Itachi to the depths of a long corridor behind him. Obviously, they have other things to discuss. The other unimportant clansmen left together. Ugh! Looking at the backs of Fuyu and the others disappearing into the depths of the corridor, Changfeng sighed silently in his heart. Thinking about it, as the patriarch, he also has his own difficulties that he has to compromise and endure. After all, the Uchiha family has a great business, and it cannot be said that rebellion means rebellion. Or, Fuyu is planning to use Shishui, just like using his son Itachi to make him a double agent. Trying to create a better time to rebel? Changfeng didn't believe that Fuyu, who was able to become the Uchiha patriarch, didn't even have the IQ to see through Zishui's details. He shook his head. This intrigue makes people not interested in thinking about it at all. If you have this time, why don't you study carefully? What ability does your kaleidoscope writing wheel have? After leaving Nanga Shrine, Changfeng quickly found an empty space in the back mountain. Chakra injected into his eyes, and the jet-black pupils immediately appeared in the shape of a three-edged windmill, turning into a kaleidoscope writing wheel eye. The pupils turned into the shape of a kaleidoscope writing wheel, and the three-edged windmill mark was very obvious. Changfeng immediately noticed that his field of vision became extremely wide, and his eyesight increased exponentially. Many things that are usually impossible to observe with ordinary eyesight are now clearly and unmistakably presented in front of them. For example, 50 meters ahead, on that tree, about 8 meters up the trunk, there was a small insect in the crack of the bark. It was moving slowly in the cracks of the bark, looking for food. Not only is the field of vision within reach, but very fine details can be clearly observed, and even the situation outside the field of vision, Changfeng seems to be able to see it. Just now, when he was observing the insects, 3 sparrows flew above his head. At the same time, on the ground 70 meters behind the left, a centipede is preying on cockroaches in the pile of fallen leaves. Fresh sensations like this are constantly being fed back through the eyes. It is said that Sharinyan has the ability to observe, copy, perform illusions, etc. at the same time, and this is true at all. Even a white eye can see the surrounding movement so clearly, and the inside is far above the white eye. I don't know what it feels like. Let me try it out. What exactly is the ability of these eyes? Changfeng couldn't put it down. He gently stroked his eyes, and then began to explore his pupil strength. Time flies. On the other side, Uchiha Itachi and Shisui walked out of Nanga Shrine together. Zishui, can I ask you a question? Itachi raised his head and glanced at the sunset in the west, suddenly asked thoughtfully. What? Shishui stopped and turned around curiously. His face was full of gentleness. Although he is younger than himself, Itachi is a child whose talent is not inferior to him at all. It seems that because of this, Zishui always wants to get close to him and talk to him more. Even many times, there is an urge in his heart to teach Itachi personally, let Itachi inherit the righteousness of the ninja, and thoroughly understand and implement the will of fire like a big brother. After the sun goes down, it will still rise tomorrow, but if life dies, it will never come back. Then, why do people live? Since graduating from the ninja school, Itachi has already experienced the baptism of war and is used to seeing life and death. Even though he is only 8 years old now, what he has experienced is more complicated than that of many adults. This also directly caused his thinking to be very different from ordinary people. Hearing this, Zishui thought for a while. He raised his head and glanced at the sky. Have you thought this far? As expected of you, Itachi. Although life cannot be repeated, the spiritual will of people can be passed on forever. Do you know the meaning of Konoha? Where there are leaves flying, there must be flames burning. The will of fire. Itachi's dark eyes flashed with surprise, and his eyes became a little brighter. The spirit is also lifted. Since you mentioned this, it just so happens that I have something to say to you. Come with me quickly. Itachi. Let's go to the cliff over there before the sunset has completely gone down the mountain. Shishui said, and quickly jumped out. He deliberately used his best teleportation technique, and he disappeared into the woods in the blink of an eye. Seeing this, Itachi immediately used the escape technique and quickly chased after him. The sky was completely dark. Changfeng also finished his training and returned to the Uchiha clan. Konoha, who was walking at the beginning of the lantern, was a little deserted on the street at this moment because of the sacrifice of a large number of people due to the war. When passing outside a yard, Changfeng suddenly moved his ears. Listening carefully, you can hear someone training in the yard, and the sound of punches and legs is occasionally mixed with the reprimands of adults. He subconsciously raised his head and glanced in the direction of the door. The Hyuga clan. Just now, I was in a hurry to get home for dinner, and I didn't deliberately choose a route. I just wanted to take a shortcut, but I didn't expect to come here unknowingly. Hearing the sound of training in the yard, Changfeng's heart moved. He looked around, then jumped on the roof across the street, looking down, and immediately had a panoramic view of the situation in the yard on the street. Although he is still young now, he can already tell that it is Hinata. Changfeng muttered to himself in his heart. At this moment, the one who is training hard in the yard is the eldest daughter of the Hinata clan, one of the goddesses of Hokage, Hinata. And her opponent is naturally very strict with her daughter, the current leader of the Hyuga clan Hyuga Hizu. It was clear that Hinata was out of breath and sweating profusely, and even her steps and movements were a little messy. But Hyuga Hizu didn't mean to stop at all. While constantly speaking and pointing out Hinata, the core essentials of Bagwazang's moves and movements are occasionally criticized. At such a young age, to undergo such cruel training, such a father is too ruthless. Changfeng silently complained. Just as his thought appeared, in the opposite yard, Hyagahizu stopped shooting. Okay, let's go here today. You can go to rest. Hyagahizu first ordered her daughter, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com, then turned his head and looked towards Chongfeng. Indeed, it was discovered. Chongfeng's heart skipped a beat, but Hyagahizu just glanced at him casually and didn't do anything else. He just put his hands behind his back, turned around and walked into the house. Looks like he's even stricter than my cheap dad who died in battle. Chongfeng couldn't help rolling his eyes and jumped back to the ground. At this moment, the voice of conversation came again in my ears. He couldn't help getting closer to the side of the courtyard wall, and the voices of the conversations in the room became clearer. The immortal human body can not only improve the physique, but also improve the sensitivity of the five senses accordingly. Chongfeng listened carefully. Only a woman's voice was heard in the room, and she said with a little worry, "The messenger of Union Village, it is said that they are already on their way, and on the bright side, they plan to negotiate with us Konoha, and they probably won't come out again." What's wrong? Humph. Among the five major countries, Yunyan, Shean and Huiyan have all agreed to a truce, but Union Village, which is clearly far away from our Konoha mountains, has delayed the war until now. If they dare to come to Konoha to make trouble, we will never let any enemy go. Hyagahizu's words were firm and unequivocal. And Chongfeng, who was eavesdropping outside the courtyard wall, couldn't help but move in his heart. As a transmigrator, Chongfeng knows it better than anyone else. Union sent messengers to come to Konoha to sign a peace agreement. Of course, it will not be as simple as it seems. The Hyaga clan's blinded and blood-reliable limit ability has long been coveted by the enemy for a long time. Another purpose of the Union messenger's trip was to kidnap Hinata.